And the Eightfold Path, so what I'm doing now is I'm going to try to push you into understanding how the Eightfold Path helps us to gain mastery of our happiness, or of our experience of living in the world, our way of dealing with dukkha, anicca, and anatta, right? So what we want to do is have a mood or a disposition that makes it so that when these things happen, we embrace them. We find them pleasing. We like them rather than finding them awful. Because these things are going to happen. That's just reality. Nobody escapes those things. So the key is to have a mindset that just likes it, that's cool with it, that embraces it, right? The more that you see these things as positive, the less you will suffer from them. And remember, there is nothing inherently or necessarily bad about these things, except that we don't see them as good. That's what makes them bad, right? So we get to choose. And when you develop real mastery of your way of handling reality, then nothing can ever make you less than peaceful, less than happy, less than satisfied. So you just roll with it all, right? So I'm going to leave this up. The nature of existence is anatta, and we're going to fill out now what the Eightfold Path is. So remember, these are practices for developing skills to take the nature of existence as good, or as happy, as positive, right? I need to hear this myself right now, in part, because this Saturday I'm going to go do an Ironman triathlon, which is a long swim, a really long bike, and then a marathon, all back to back. And clearly going to do that with a sore ankle from that accident. So I'm anticipating a lot of dukkha, right, this weekend coming up. And I need to remind myself that it's only bad if I think it is, right? So what are the skills or the coping mechanisms that I'm going to employ? I have to start thinking them through now to embrace it, appreciate it, and be grateful for it, which is incredibly difficult when you feel like it's awful, right? So here are some of the coping mechanisms that Buddhists have found over time to help us to develop skill in appreciating the nature of existence, in appreciating anatta, anicca, and dukkha, right? All of these have to do with doing something right. But I'm going to, instead of using the word right, I'm going to say correct. You can do these things correctly, or you can do them incorrectly. And if you do them incorrectly, don't be surprised that they don't achieve their end, right? So you got to do it correctly. And so you have to have here correct understanding. Maybe I'll just write them all up first. So correct understanding, correct thought, correct speech, correct action, correct livelihood, correct effort, correct mindfulness, and lastly, correct meditation. Now, I'm going to tell you straight up, on the final exam, there will be a question, it's an essay question, that says, please list the Eightfold Path. And that's all you're going to have to do, is just list it. I'm not even going to make you explain it or anything like that. I just want you to memorize, this is the Eightfold Path. Here's what it is, right? But I will explain each one of these so that you understand what they're trying to accomplish. But know, all of these here, all of these are coping mechanisms. So, do you guys know what coping mechanisms, what this means? You're comfortable with this when I say coping mechanisms? You know, like crap happens in your life and you got to deal with it, right? So, maybe another way to think of that is like dealing with dealing with the crap, dealing with life as it unfolds. These are the coping mechanisms, or the ways that we deal. So they're not abstract. The idea is that you are supposed to put these into practice somehow, right? You actually use them. Are you going to use all 8 of them at the same time? No. You use some of them when it's appropriate and others when it's appropriate, right? Some of these you use as guidelines to help you think about other things you're going to do throughout the day. For instance, like correct livelihood will help you think about what sort of career you should be pursuing or how you should go about doing the job you already have, right? If you want to do it correctly. Correct action and so on. So we'll start with the first, correct understanding. Here, correct understanding means that when the world gives me something that makes me unhappy, when I find myself feeling disturbed, annoyed, in a hurry, angry, when I have a desire to hurt somebody else or do something mean, or when I have a desire to do bad things, when my mood or mindset is off, one of the things I can do is take a step back and employ correct understanding. What does that mean? Well, it means I'm going to remind myself of the fundamental nature of existence. So, here's a good example of this. Let's say that I'm in a hurry. The woman who hit me last week, she was in a hurry to get to work. She was afraid she was going to get fired if she didn't get to work on time. So, being in a hurry, she took an illegal left-hand turn for a right turn only lane and ended up whacking a dude on a motorcycle. She didn't mean to. It's not like she was mad at me and wanted to hurt me or any of those sorts of things, right? She was in a hurry. She was anxious. She was worried. She was scared. She was rushed. This was life bearing down on her, right? She's feeling resistance and the impermanence of her job, that Anika. She's worried she's going to lose what she is by getting fired, and how's she going to pay for her home, and all these other things, right? All that is like bearing down on her, and it made her in a rushed mindset, hurrying. What does she need to do in that moment? She needs to stop and go, wait, what is life all about? Well, life is anatta, anika, and dukkha. No matter where I go, no matter what I do, this is the nature of existence. What I'm feeling right now, this rush to get to work, it's just the fear of impermanence. And the worry over myself, this not self, is just bearing down on me. And I'm feeling the resistance of the world. That's just the nature of things. Why am I fighting against this? Right? I've forgotten that that's what life is all about. And it's neither necessarily good or bad. Except for that right now I'm feeling it like it's very bad. Right? I'm feeling like it's really bad. Why? Because I really want my job. I think that if I lose my job, I'm going to lose myself. Right? And if I lose myself, what's left? Oh, right? I'm really afraid of the future. And so in order to grasp and hold on to my job, I gotta get there on time, right? And does she control the future? Is the nature of reality such that these things are up to you anyways? No. Were they ever? No. Are they going to be? No. But you think they are in your grasping way because you're being ignorant of reality. So what's the answer to that problem of ignorance of reality? Understanding reality. You just have to say, wait a second. I'm not in charge of all of this. This is the nature of the world. What if I lose my job? Well, maybe I get a better one. Maybe that's just the way things are supposed to go. Or maybe, so I used to play this game with myself when I was late to come and teach. When I get stopped, of course, when you're late, you're going to get stopped at every red light, right? And I would say to myself, well, okay, what are the possibilities? And so what I'm teaching you here are some coping mechanisms, right? When you're feeling that frustration, that, oh, like I gotta get there. And then everybody is annoying. Every other driver on the road is an asshole, right? And they're not going fast enough, and they like slow down right in front of you. And it's an old lady who's gonna drive, and you're like, get the hell out of the way, right? You're just really mad at them. So here's what I would think. As just sort of a coping mechanism, a practice that would help me to pause and get some space to think about the nature of existence as it is. I would say, look, maybe this red light just saved me from getting hit by a semi. Like that 2 minutes that I'm sitting here at this red light, maybe it keeps me over here on this part of the road for this much longer, and that there's some dude drunk driving a semi who's going to go flying through the intersection, and it would have hit me except for this light. So that instead of thinking of this light as a negative, because I think somehow it's the only thing that's preventing me from my job, maybe it's a blessing. What do I know? Right? But what happens to my mood when I start thinking like that? Am I mad at the light? Am I mad at the other driver now? Who seems to be preventing me from getting where I want to go, who I experience as resistance and friction and dukkha. Now I see that they're slowing me down as a benefit to me, maybe, right? And the more and more that I can practice that kind of thinking, the more and more I say, all right, I'm cool with this, right? It's all going to be okay, right? So, right understanding or correct understanding is that when you're in the moment of unhappiness, whatever that is, whatever is causing it, that you're able to step back and reflect on the real nature of existence and realize that you have a choice to see these as negative or as positive. And that they are not negative or positive in themselves, but as you approach them. It's a product of your understanding, right? So what you do is come up with tricks to get yourself into the right frame of mind. And you tell yourself fictions. Like maybe this is saving me from getting hit by a car. And the fictions are useful because, look, nobody knows what the truth of the future is going to be, right? So when I tell myself, there's another fiction that I tell myself that keeps me angry. I'm going to be late. My students are going to leave. I'm going to get in trouble. I might lose my job if I do this very often. Is that all true? It's no more true than that guy saved me from getting hit by a semi. They're both fictions, right? But one fiction makes me terribly unhappy, and the other fiction makes me happy. Which one should I tell myself? The one that makes me happier, right? Especially since there's nothing I can do about it anyways. I'm only going to get there when I get there. So that's practicing correct understanding. Questions on that? So then what do? Well, you need to have a bag of tricks. You need to have a bag of tricks that you can pull out when you're feeling frustrated. They're little things that give you mental adjustments that change your mind about how you see something that right now seems like it's in your way and it's frustrating and it's angering. Instead, you need to have a trick that helps you to see it as something to be grateful for, something to be glad about. Because the only one who experiences happiness when you have correct understanding is you. Right? Now, your understanding isn't correct with respect to the future. It's not like you know what's going to happen now in the future. That's not what's correct. It's you're correctly understanding the nature of existence. I don't control these things. I would rather be happy with it than unhappy with it. So let me skillfully develop happiness. Right? If you do that enough, then you do it automatically. How long does that take? A lifetime. Maybe 1,000 lifetimes. Right? For Buddhists, if you're, thinking of reincarnation, you're just starting this process of developing automatic and spontaneous correct understanding. An enlightened being never loses sight of the nature of existence. Just deals with it all. Takes it in stride. All right, questions on that? All right, correct thought. Now this is a kind of thinking, right? Correct understanding. But this is much more specific. By correct thought, what we mean is the actual things going in your head need to be correct. So here, we are thinking about the truth of the things we tell ourselves. Right? That we need to tell ourselves the truth. We need to be honest with ourselves. And we need to think truthful thoughts about the world around us. Right? So correct thought involves thinking true things and also I'm tempted to say avoiding evil things, but be careful of this word avoiding.